What food used to be popular, but has fallen out of style? In England, a lot of French foods. Go to a restaurant 20 or 30 years ago, a lot of French dishes would be on the menu. Seen as the height of sophistication at the time. Duck à l'orange, pat starter, souffle, potatoes dauphinoise etc. I remember Amza criticizing some restaurants on Kitchen Nightmares for having some of these dishes, telling them it's not the 1980s anymore. Nowadays, you're likely to see dishes from further afield such as Thai or Japanese instead at a fairly standard gastropub. Cake pops used to be everywhere, now I only see them at Starbucks. Waldorf salad, have only seen it a handful of times since my grandparents died, used to have it there all the time. Candy cigarettes, they still have them, they just call them candy sticks now. Same thing, different packaging. It's usually superheroes or cartoon figures on the boxes now. Kidney was served at the finest restaurants at the beginning of the 20th century, but its popularity diminished greatly in recent decades. A more popular offal was liver, but it, too, has fallen out of favor. Ditto calf and lamb's brain. Kidney and liver were high status foods up until the 60s. My grandfather always wanted liver and onions because he considered it rich people food. My grandma tried tricking my sister and I with liver. She told us we were having steak. My sister tried it and said this is good chicken. I tried one bite and I cringed with disgust. My sister saw my face and that was the last bite she had. Pickled eggs. Lounges and bars would always have a jar of them on the bar top. We make a regional variant here in Pennsylvania out of red beet brine. Most of the time we just call them pickled eggs, but they are definitely a different thing from the traditional pickled egg. Alestra potato chips. Half the fat, twice the diarrhea, less fat more splat, less lipids in the dish, more liquids going squish. My mom makes ambrosia and said it's from the 50s but nobody eats it. It's really good though, it's got coconut, marshmallows and tiny oranges and stuff. My middle school did a Greek/Roman gods month. At the end, threw us a feast of the gods, which included ambrosia. I remember being confused about whether the gods had marshmallows back then. Good though. Push-ups popsicles. I loved eating push-ups as a kid. Took me 3 days to find some for my son. Found them at Dollar General of all places. And the large banana/fudge bomb popsicles. I can only find small baby-like ones. They used to have both these everywhere when I was a kiddo. I found some fancy grown-up push pops with all the artisanal buzzwords. I was delighted to have this mesh of childhood nostalgia and modern bouginess, so I bought them right away. But then I tasted them and realized it's a super inefficient and messy delivery system. It's like licking ice cream out of a toilet paper roll, and the ice cream ends up tasting like cardboard. And these are problems? Kid cuisine. I used to eat the raw, frozen brownie batter before cooking the meal. For some unknown reason, panini. Used to see them at cafes and lunchrooms almost every day 10 years ago. Now I haven't seen a panini for at least 3 years. I feel like casseroles used to a lot bigger than they are now, which is a pity. It's hard to screw up, mix multiple foods together in Pyrex and bake it. Here in Japan, traditional Japanese meals, grilled fish, rice, miso soup plus seasonal vegetable side dishes, seem to be more and more a thing for older people. Younger people are all about meat. Seafood is in danger of losing its throne, if it hasn't already. Bread has also begun supplanting rice as the go-to for breakfast. Of course there are young traditionalists, but it's gone from basically everyone eating the same styles of meals and wanting nothing else to them seeming quaint or special in the way that a roast dinner is in the West. How does that work exactly? My probably entirely wrong understanding was that things like beef roasts were scarce in Japan because of the limited space for grazing animals. Are you importing more of that kind of stuff, or are there agricultural technologies that make it more viable? It just seems like an expensive thing to have become generationally popular. They import a considerable amount of meat to make up for the lack of grazing land. Domestic meat is almost entirely pork and chicken, of which both are eaten in copious amounts. Lamb and mutton are rare, as is poultry that doesn't go cluck. Game is eaten in some rural areas with hunting cultures. but generally not that much nationwide. Popular beef dishes include burgers, steak, Salisbury steak, often a beef/pork blend, beef stew, nikujaga, a kind of meat and potatoes dish that hits the spot in the winter. There are countless Japanese pork dishes, and Japanese chicken dishes need no introduction. Interestingly, chicken breast is really cheap here, while thigh and other dark meats are more expensive. Chicken breast is basically dry trash to the typical Japanese palate. They generally prefer juicy, fatty cuts of everything, which I don't. Meaning I don't eat that much meat here. To the surprise of Japanese, who seem to assume white people live on 90% meat diets. Fondue. I have a vague memory from when I was a kid of my parents getting a fondue pot. We all sat around the table dipping a giant fork with bread hunks into melted cheese, and then we never used it again. Your parents probably didn't like having to clean the thing once everyone was done. Butterscotch candy. 26-year-old woman here who keeps a roll of Werthers in her purse. They're delicious. I fully embrace my grandma status. 26-year-old man here. I keep a bag of Werthers on my desk. Well, at least until I eat all of them in a sitting. A block of cream cheese topped with cocktail sauce and a can of baby shrimp. Any style of bread pudding. Something my grandma used to make often when I was a kid. Even now she doesn't really make it. I just never see it anymore. You should get her recipe and try making it yourself. I wish I had gotten my great grandmother's recipe. I know most people use regular loaf bread or maybe Texas toast. She used leftover biscuits. American terminology. Best bread pudding I remember ever having. Biscuits are great, but I'll do you one better: donut bread pudding. Eating robins was quite popular in the 1800s. Here's a recipe from Women's Cookbook. Published in 1890. Cover the bottom of a pie dish with thin slices of beef and fat bacon, over which lay 10 or 12 robins, previously rolled in flour, stuffed as above. Season with a teaspoonful of salt, a quarter ditto of pepper, 1 of chopped parsley, and 1 of chopped eschalots. Lay a bay leaf over, add a gill of broth, and cover with 3/4 pound of half puff taste. Bake 1 hour in a moderate oven. Shake well to make the gravy in the pie form a kind of sauce, and serve quite hot. Purple ketchup. Oh man. We had all the colors growing up, even green. Tastes like ketchup. I remember the green ketchup. I was maybe 2 to 3 years old and my babysitter always had green ketchup. Salisbury steak. This is actually a bit backwards for the question, but my mom used to tell me a story of how, when she was little, lobster was poor people's food. She would get it in her sandwiches during lunch at school, and she would try to hide it so her classmates didn't see, or else they would make fun of her. Now she and my dad get it on New Year's Eve because it's a special treat. Lol. Chicken a larking. If it's chicken, chicken a larking. If it's fish, fish a larking. If it's turkey, fish a larking. Onion dip. The party food of the 50s. I keep a few packets of Lipton French onion soup mix for emergencies. Dunkaroos _ My college roommate had a box of Dunkaroo packs and it almost made up for him also being a drug dealer. Chipped beef on toast. SOS was popular with my grandparents' generation, but I actually really like it. There's also a really good older cooking show called Two Fat Ladies, and pretty much everything they made on the show has fallen out of style. Still really entertaining show. Liver and gizzards. Does beef Wellington count? Used to be a big, fancy thing. Now I just think 1960s when I hear it. Edit. This is from an American perspective. I'm not sure if they are more popular elsewhere. However, as others have mentioned, they are no longer seen as quite so outdated nowadays. Beef Wellington has been making a comeback thanks to food blogs over the past 10 years. Granted, the pate has been replaced with duxelles, so it probably isn't the traditional recipe. Gordon Ramsay has a fairly famous preparation if you're up for a challenge. Lobster thermidor. I haven't had this since I last made it in The Sims. I remember when bacon used to be all the rage about 10 years ago. You couldn't open Reddit without being up to your eyes in bacon. Nutella or sriracha memes. Tide Pods. This is the only joke answer here that made me chuckle. Nice one. Spam. Unless you're in Hawaii, we have a spam festival every year. Cheese fondue, those were the days. Fish, we still consume a lot of fish, but not even close to how dominant it was historically. Throughout much of history, in particular Europeans and Americans, fish would make up 2 meals of the week. Now most people have it probably a few times a month at most, if that. Also, pickled foods. A lot more food used to be pickled as it was a way of keeping it fresh. I wonder if this has to do with fishing stocks. Cod followed by haddock both used to be really popular in the UK until we overfished them to the point they're rare and quite a bit more expensive. I eat certain types rarely because of mercury. Tripe. We still eat tripe in soups. It is quite popular for my husband culture. The trend where they made black versions of food for everything. The squid ink ones, totally fine. The activated charcoal ones, absorb your medications and keep them from working. Activated charcoal is for saving someone from poisoning, not for decorating food. Close bracket. Low-fat cookies. Snackwell's Devil's Food Cake cookie were trash. Making chocolate and marshmallow taste sad is an accomplishment. Boiled vegetables. And good riddance. So many people in my generation grew up thinking they didn't like vegetables. No. What you don't like is your mother's shitty middle American cooking style. My mom always joked that she learned to cook out of spite. Pocky. Seems like I used to see that shit everywhere and it's fallen off. Edit. So basically it's everywhere but where I'm currently looking. According to you guys, I may be single-handedly keeping the industry alive. I love that shit. Also, hello panda. 7-layer salad. Used to see one at every family gathering. Now nowhere to be found. Maybe not popular, but definitely commonplace. Basically any southern depression era food. Chitlins, boiled pig intestines, grits, porridge made of boiled cornmeal, chipped beef gravy and toast. The military gave it the ill-deserved name shit on a shingle. Meatloaf, bread pudding, before pudding became synonymous with custard. Soup, beans and cornbread. Any recipe involving rhubarb, like strawberry rhubarb pie. Grits are still common in the South. I was telling my mom today that I have wanted a good restaurant style Alfredo for weeks. None of the restaurants around me have it on the menu. Maybe it's not a popular dish anymore. Edit to add. Alfredo is a favorite of mine. I feel like, not too long ago, I could go into any sit-down restaurant of any caliber and get Alfredo. But recently, that just hasn't been the case. Many of the local restaurants are takeout only ATM and have abridged menus. We have plenty of pizza restaurants near. Only 2 are pizza and pasta. Only 1 serves Alfredo, and it's in the next town over. The 2 Italian restaurants in town are way overpriced. Since when does Alfredo run $25 a plate? Exclamation mark. And the Italian deli by my place only serves spaghetti, also grossly overpriced for what it is. Close bracket. While making it as an option, it doesn't always turn out great. Most of the pizza places around me are just pizza or pizza/wings/salad. And like I said, I live in some Olive Garden void where the nearest to me is 25-30 miles away. I would love to have a pizza and pasta restaurant in town. Jello salad. Those ice cream roll things. They were super popular briefly, but I don't see them anywhere online anymore. Corn dog. Corn dog. Corn dog. Corn dog. I'm chanting this. Pimentos used to be popular in recipes. Zwieback. Turnip and collard greens have gone out of style, even though they are super healthy. Grits are not as popular as they used to be. I don't know where you're from, but here in Alabama those are daily staples. Beans and greens forever and always. Don't forget cornbread. I watched that show Super Sizes on YouTube, and in the 70s episode they ate steak Diane, and it looked delicious, and they both loved it. I wonder why it fell out of style. Wilted lettuce salad. Spring lettuce, a little sugar and vinegar with bacon crumbles and bacon fat, which wilted the leaves. Delicious. Sweet and sour. It kind of disappeared with the anti-fat diets of the 70s, but it was a delicious summer picnic type dish. Vienna sausages. I ate a disgusting amount of those little finger-sized hot dogs as a kid. I tried them years later having a moment of nostalgia. Gross. Tunge. Beef tongue. It's pretty good if you're not thinking about it. I still eat lengua tacos. I will always choose lengua tacos if they're on the menu. Every single time. Without fail. Not completely out of style, but Krispy Kreme donuts were all the rage for a while. It was like a phenomenon. Now it's just one of many donut places like anything else. Cheese Whiz seemed like such a big thing in the late 90s-early zeros, and I can't remember the last time I've seen it. Exclamation mark. I'm from Indiana, and we all love this stuff called sugar cream pie. You might know it as water pie. Apostrophe. During the Great Depression it was extremely popular, since it really only required a pie crust and a fuck ton of sugary stuff. But nowadays 49 of the 50 states of the US have pretty much forgotten it exists. Except for one, Indiana. We eat it all the time here, even today, and it's a Thanksgiving tradition in many households. We seriously can't get enough of it. But the rest of the US sure as hell has. Edit. So the story goes even deeper than that. It was popular during the Great Depression, and remained popular in Amish circles, since it's cheap and easy to make with their more rustic cookware. Since Indiana has such a large Amish population, they were able to popularize it with English, non-Amish families in the state. The pie only really takes 5 ingredients: flour, sugar, cream, butter, and vanilla, and you can get one frozen, if my post piqued your interest. Not a food but orange juice. Always used to be a staple product in the house, but haven't bought any for years. Mainly frozen concentrate orange juice in the can. I work in a grocery store and the frozen juice section used to be huge, with lots of variety, and we sold tons of it. Now it's just a couple of types and I see it come through rarely. Yeah, I remember my mom buying tons of this when I was a kid. Never even crosses my mind to buy nowadays. Chicken Kiev. Rumaki. They used to be on every appetizer menu. That fluffy iced coffee at the beginning of the lockdown. Vinegar pie. Ever since I became an adult I stopped liking Trix cereal. Good and plenty licorice. For some reason most people don't like black licorice, but I think it's delicious. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.